Welcome to the Unheard Cries of a Mother, the podcast where we dive into raw, unfiltered stories of motherhood, the joys, the struggles, the sacrifices, and the triumphs. Here we amplify voices that too often go unheard, shining a light on the incredible strength, resilience, and love of mothers around the world. I'm Sabrina Ben Salmi, your host, and I invite you to join as we uncover the stories behind the smiles, share lessons learned, and create a community that uplifts, supports, and inspires. Let's honor the unheard cries and celebrate the silent victories of motherhood. Thank you so much. Today I'm here with my guest, Mayowa. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Absolutely beautiful. Mayowa and I met last year in Dubai, so I'm very excited to have her here on the podcast. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your day.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. So I'm going to dive right into our first question. Can you share a pivotal moment in your motherhood journey that shaped who you are today?
So I may not be able to pick one moment, but I think that just going through pregnancy and then more specifically delivering my baby and having him in my arms, I think that changed me. And there's one thing I usually like to tell people that I think will answer the question is, as I'm Nigerian, by the way, if you couldn't already tell, Nigerian, and Nigeria, and I'm Christian. And there's that thing in Nigeria, in the Christian community, where there's the debate about certain types of prayers where you pray against your enemy. Lord, all my enemies die. There's schools of thought that permit those kinds of prayers, and there's schools of thought that feel, oh, let our enemies not die. Let's love them. Let's help them come back to Jesus and all that fun stuff. Now, prior to delivering my boy, I was, partly part of the school of thought, like, just let the enemies be. Let's be nice. When I held my baby in my arms, I was praying some kind of prayers like, Lord, tear the enemies apart. Any evil eye that tries to look at my boy, tear them to pieces. And that's what becoming a mother did to me. Like from nowhere, I was like, I can hurt somebody if anybody tried to do anything. So I think that was a profound, an interesting shift because I didn't deliberately do that. I didn't consciously do that, but my protective energy really, really just came to the fore. And I know that, listen, you can try stuff with me, but don't even think about my child. I would literally, I'm like, I would tear you apart. Right. So that's been interesting. And I think that just having my baby in my arms and watching him grow and just loving and wanting the best and just being full on protective, that has changed me. I don't think I'm as protective of anything in this world as I am protective of my son.
Wow. Do you know, it's so difficult to actually respond when hearing, a mum share that because you took me back. I can totally relate. When it comes to our babies, there's a different side of protection. It
Oh,
unlocked something that we didn't know was there. It just lay dormant for some time. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, really, really moving. Really moving. Beautiful. So the next question is, what's one part of your story that you feel has gone unheard or unacknowledged?
if there's any part that's been unheard or unacknowledged, it's because I made it so. So as a person, I'm in the public space, I'm online a lot, I'm into personal branding, public speaking, media, all of those nice and fun things. So I'm out there a lot. But you wouldn't see as much about like my family life, especially my son, who you would hardly ever see his picture online anywhere, right? And that's deliberate. First of all, when I newly had him, around the same time, somebody was messing around on Facebook. You know how they sort of recreate your profile. And then my baby was like less than a month. And I posted a picture with his face to my shoulder and just his, like, just, new mom picture.
Yeah.
This person who had created a Facebook account trying to pose as me had posted that picture as well. Like they're just taking a bunch of stuff. And I was like, wow. So if I posted his face, this is how his face would be all over the place. And then you hear like weird stuff about how people save random children's pictures.
Oh gosh.
Like, I know maybe not everyone has ill intent, but it's just weird. I wouldn't post any random baby's face, like share it or save it.
Awful.
So just thinking about all those kinds of things, like I don't want my baby's face all over the place. It's already unsettling for me to see my pictures on a scammer's page. So imagine having to see my child. Then again, I'm in the public space, so I can live with it to a degree. And remember what I said, you can mess with me to a degree, but don't mess with me. So I'm like, I told my husband, I'm like, listen, this boy, these boys' pictures are not going anywhere. And we've sort of just stuck to that the whole time. Yeah, a few times we would make some concessions, but you wouldn't like see his full on face, especially on my own pages and my platforms. So for me, that's it's deliberate, right? Yes, on Instagram lets you share like stories to select people. So there, and of course I've handpicked everyone who gets to see that. I would sometimes share those moments, and I'm like a mom, like I'm like get on the floor, bark like a dog. I'm that mom. And as much as, yes, sometimes I feel like, oh, I wish people could really see this side of me, because oftentimes when they see me out and about, I'm well put together, I'm speaking Queen's English, and I'm looking all. Well, I really get down to business with my boy when we play. And sometimes I wish I could share that, but I don't feel like I miss anything if people don't get to see that. Because again, I'm not being that so that people can see it. I'm being that in the space that matters, and that's with my son and with my family. So that's very intentional for me.
That is beautiful. And just by listening to you, I love how you're very intentional with your actions. It's not just for the sake of it. And it made me kind of reflect on what I do with my children and the way we started doing what we were doing. I didn't really have a choice because things kind of organically went in that direction. But I really love how everything you're doing around your son is so intentional and it's so beautiful. It's lovely. And I guess there's lots of pressure to feel that we all have to share, but I'm glad that you're just claiming your power and saying to your husband, absolutely not. I
I mean,
don't blame you.
let me add to that, because there are times when I think about the world we live in now with
Mm.
branding and how the digital space has really come to life, right? I feel like in the future, and I feel like we're in it now, but in the future, the digital world would almost be as real, if not realer, than the actual physical world we live in. So everything virtual and digital and in that space would be so real. I mean, think about theft, identity theft, how someone can actually steal your identity, and in the books, in the systems, you're this other person, but you're like, this is me, that I'm here. But they're saying this digital that we see, that. So I see in the future how there'll be a struggle, and people will really need to protect, like the way you own your person, you need to own whatever representation of you is out there. And if care is not taken, your digital representation will carry more power, more authority than the skin and the bones. So when I have thoughts like that, and I think about how even now the kids, the children that we have, we need to help them navigate the digital world, own their own identity, their virtual identity. And now you need to own it now rather than later. So let me simplify that and distill it. How, if you want to create your own page, sometimes if you came in late to the game, the name has been taken, right? You want to put Mayowa Adegoke, and sorry, somebody else already took it. And no matter, even if you have like a bigger public profile than the person, they already took that name. So what to do? So I think about how, owning his digital assets, let's call it that way, how it's better to get in there early and XYZ. And okay, should I keep him away or not? How in the future, and that digital attention is currency. So any kid now who's building those followers, so imagine a kid that's already amassing followers now, by the time they're 20 is like a lot. And that's capital. And I think about how my son hasn't even entered that game and I'm not maximizing it. But again, I balance it with what I believe is important now. And I say, listen, when we get to that level, when we get to that bridge, we'll cross it. And again, just by being a person of faith, we know that the doing is not what gives us the promise. Like the promise is the promise. Where we're going to get to, we're going to get to. What God has assigned to us so I balance it out with whatever God has called him to be, he's not going to miss it. It's not going to skip him. He's going to come into it. And opening up his social media account now is not what guarantees that.
I love that. You know, you've touched on so many golden nuggets, and I think there are some real threats. There are some real observations and realities. I love the way you've actually worded that, because identity theft is real. And I'm also glad that as a mother, you've actually touched on that, because there are so many moms that are very much in a bit of a dark space with regards to, do I jump online? Do I not jump online? And I love that. Like, what's yours is yours. And there'll become a time and place when it needs to be. And to be quite frank, sometimes an invisible brand is the action choice, just to maintain that privacy, because it's not necessary for your child's face to be online. You know, I'm just being very real. They can have a brand, the association is to them, but it's not necessary for them per se to be on, for people to actually see them. They can see the work they're doing, they can see what they're passionate about. But I love the way you've worded that. And I think that's a real topic for discussion when you think about it, because how do we navigate that space? Because we can make some real serious mistakes. And if we put everything online, it's so much easier to duplicate and for someone to actually infiltrate you. And unfortunately, we've experienced that. So yeah, I think you've touched on some really golden nuggets there. So thank you very much for that. Next question is, how has motherhood challenged your sense of identity?
One. So I feel like I've never really struggled with identity as a person. I mean, obviously, we're all work in progress, and identity is not a one-time thing. It's not a destination. It's not a box you tick. It is, we are becoming in seasons, right? We are always becoming, and we will always be becoming, if that makes any sense. So we'll always be becoming. And so identity is something will always like unfold in layers and in seasons. However, at the crux of it, I feel like I've never really been that person to. On the flip side, I've always been like, am I now aging on the pride, arrogance? Which one? Is this healthy self-esteem or is this pride now? That's where I've always been. So it's like, I've got a lot of it. But in terms of being a mom, how that, impacts and shapes it is, for instance, I think about, I'm building this brand, I'm building me, and ultimately, whatever God has called me to, and whatever it is that He helps me build, my child, my son, and my children will come into that, whether they like it or not. Right? So it's like their world, their future is being shaped, whether they like it or not, by what's happening in my life. So it is just being aware of that, being conscious of it, that yes, as I become, it must also influence how I parent them. Right. So I do not think that, oh, everyone's got to be parented the same way. I think that depending on the circumstances that you find yourself in, like if you're born into a wealthy, super wealthy family, automatic, it's a different reality for you. How you think, how you talk, how you be, all of those things. So it is just being aware. My son is still young, but again, there's that consciousness that as I become, as my world unfolds, as God's plan for my life unfolds, I've got to remember that the way I parent, the way I raise him, has got to be influenced based on that. So those are topics I have in my head for now. I haven't really, there's not been the opportunity to act them out. But then again, even thinking about my decision to keep his face offline, it's still a result of remember me being in that public space and somebody tried to duplicate my. So again, if I feel like I didn't have that public profile or whatnot, maybe I wouldn't have cared. Maybe I would have just done the regular. So I think it's already impacting, but it's just that heavy consciousness that yes, it's not just me anymore. It's not just my dreams and aspirations. It's how that rubs off on my child.
I love that. And I love how you talk about the legacy, the inheritance. You know, you're living the legacy and you're going to leave that legacy, but also that constant becoming. And I really love that the way you've worded that, because sometimes there's so much pressure in who I am and who I have to stay, when the reality is it's very fluid, it changes. And every experience we have will continue to change us. And I love that, giving mums permission to constantly, organically change. So it's beautiful. Thank you. So the next question I have is, can you describe a time when you felt completely unseen and unsupported as a mother?
No.
Or even maybe mums that you support, perhaps. Maybe that might be more fitting.
So let me put it this way. My partner, my husband is great with support. Like great with support. Maybe not at the beginning when I was having to wake up in the middle of the night. Maybe you should have woken up a bit more, but
You'll go through that.
maybe like, dude, can you wake up and take it instead of? But listen, fantastic. I never think that I'm doing it alone. I've never thought that I was doing it alone. I've never felt like I was doing it alone. So that is really creating room for me. Again, going back to if there's anything that hasn't been, it's because I'm probably engineering it. So yeah, like to be honest, I've had a great one so far. When I had my son, then I had him during COVID.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God. I had him during COVID, and we were already in Dubai at the time because of all the restrictions. My mom couldn't come. So for the first 3 months ish, it was just my husband and I. So you see how we started. We started just, yeah, we got in the trenches together. So we started it together, figuring out it together. Of course, we had a bit of support around us, but essentially we had to figure it out together. I think I was the third person to give my baby a shower. And this was within the first month of birth. Right. So, and we did it together. It's like we have a video of just, oh my God, is he gonna fall? Oh, you hold it, you hold it. So that's how we started. And we've pretty much kept that energy till date, everything, changing diapers, dressing him up. Yeah, so I've been blessed in such a way that my partner is hands-on. So I never ever, if I have to travel, I never think that, oh my God, what's going to happen to my child, you know. So that's been great. So that's why I may not have the typical answer for the question. We do it together. And if at any point, I mean, he could get me more flowers, just thinking about it. Like he could really just buy me more stuff.
This
Like
question brings out the men, but the question is kind of um, mothers feel unsupported sometimes by other mums, sometimes by resources that are there for mums. So definitely not to bring down these men. And I love how you lifted up your husband. I think that's beautiful. But hats off to you, having a baby during COVID. That's what stood out for me. Like, I don't know how I would cope, to be honest. But I love that teamwork. And I think that's so important. Just speechless. I'm absolutely speechless to actually have a baby in COVID, dealing with that alone, but to think you're having to care for a newborn, incredible, absolutely incredible.
I mean, from something you said just now, it does bring something to mind. There were times that I felt clueless early on. Again, I think because of the circumstances, this was COVID, my mom wasn't around. And I think in general, even if I had support, I might still have felt clueless. I've never had a child.
Yeah,
Matter
exactly.
I'd never been close. I'd never had babies around me ever. I've never had like a bestie who had a baby and I was going to see them. Do you
Mm.
get what I mean? Like I've never been in that space where there's a newborn and they're caring for a newborn, which was, I think, part of why my pregnancy was always also like, yeah, my first trimester was crazy.
Mm.
And I think the shock of it, because I'd never been close to anyone who was pregnant going through morning sickness. So it was like, you hear about morning sickness, but I didn't have a visual. So when it hit me and it was really bad, like I couldn't keep food down for like the better part of 3 months. So it was the shock of it. So fast forward to then having the baby, there was that feeling of how do I care for a human being? Like, what do I do? So there was a bit of that. And I think it was because my mom couldn't come. We couldn't really have experienced support immediately. But yeah, I feel like, listen, life is the rough and the smooth at the same time. So if you learn to just coast during the rough times, then you'll be fine. It's like, yeah, we'll figure it out. People are having kids during COVID. I'm figuring we will do the same. If I could go back and maybe change one thing or influence one thing, it would be perhaps of all these motherhood platforms that exist, and there are a few, and I think there was one, I think it's Baby Center. I mean, not to put any unpaid ads out there. By the way, guys, get on this Baby Center, jump on this podcast. So, and that was helpful. But if I could add something, it would be maybe like weekly webinars. And if any brand out there takes this idea, just pay me my 10%.
Yes,
So,
exactly. It's the least you can do.
perhaps and the one I did was like from pregnancy, you tracked your pregnancy, and then when you gave birth, they switched to the baby part of
Oh, that's
caring for the child.
amazing.
That was good. And they tell you what your baby's doing this week, what you could notice, all of those articles and things. But I think to add to that is, how about weekly webinars where you could get that real-time feedback? Listen, so maybe they will say, oh, this first week you might be feeling clueless, you might be feeling it's normal to feel that way. So that would have been great. Fast forward down the line, it's especially when you're not doing milestones. I was a lot clueless. It's like, what am I supposed to be teaching my child now? Like, should I be, that? Until now, I still feel like that. It's when I maybe go online, I see one of these bloggers, they do something. It's like, oh, my kid is 2. We've been teaching him how to paint since 1. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to do that? Okay, noted.
Oh,
So
wow.
in those regards, I feel like if there was more comprehensive, more nuanced support in that regard, then I would have filled in some gaps.
Makes
In
sense.
terms of assisting my child in development and all those activities, oh my God, I was really clueless in those areas. It's like, what's
So
more
relatable.
important?
So relatable. I
In
love
those
that.
areas, I do feel like I dropped the ball in those areas, and I do not punish myself, by the way. So
Yeah, exactly.
but I feel like in those areas of activities and engaging them in I was clueless. So if I could influence the past, it would be these amazing platforms that exist should add a bit more so that they could hold our hands and
Yeah.
say, this is what we're doing this week. We're teaching our 6-month-olds how to talk. You know,
So
just
true. So true. I love that because um as a mum, looking back at my 5, there were so many of those identifiable moments where, oh my God, that's what you're doing. I haven't thought about that. Brilliant. I'm so glad you told me. And then you realize that you're kind of late to the game. But I love that you've done it in such a way where you're not beating yourself up about it. It's just like, okay, maybe we can start now if that's something that we would like to implement. So thank you so much for sharing that. The next question I have is, what has been the most rewarding aspect of motherhood for you?
I think it's just looking at him and him looking at you, and yeah, it's just that pure love, like no expectations. I mean, don't drive me crazy, like I mean, try not to run your mother crazy, but no expectation. And just knowing that this child loves you unconditionally. Like, and those random moments where they come and hug you or kiss you, or, just that's it. That's it. That is it. You cannot buy that with money. You can't trade it. You can't, that's it. Like, if that's all they existed to give you, it's enough. So I think it's just that pure, unadulterated love. And to also know that this person came from me. Like, you look at them and it's like, this person is of me. That's just deep, and nothing else compares to that. And even seeing your features or seeing some of your characteristics, like, oh, that's me. Those things they just tickle me. It's like, oh God. So that's beauty of itself. And it adds meaning to life. It, like, if you didn't feel, if you didn't have any purpose before, if you didn't feel like you mattered, if you didn't, which I didn't struggle with, but if at any point I feel like, if at any point anyone felt like that, those things just have a way of topping up your cup, and just pouring into your cup. Is like, yes, the flip side of it is it's responsibility.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the flip side of it. But you take that on as well. So that's the most beautiful thing, to just look at them and be like, you belong to me and I belong to you. We belong together.
Oh, stop. You just end there. Oh, it's beautiful. Do you know, it's funny because you remind me how creepy I am as a mum, because I'm just like, I do the same. My eldest is 24 and my son's 20 and 17, 15 and 11. And they're at that funny age. And I'm exactly like you. I would just watch them and go, oh my God, you came from me, that mum, stop. What's wrong with you? Because it's just so beautiful to just see them. And oh, I'm in love.
I kiss my son's like, don't kiss me.
Yeah.
He goes, okay, so I go, can I kiss you in the morning? No. Can I kiss you at night? No. Can I kiss you in the afternoon? Yes. So now in the afternoon, I'm like, okay.
Oh, get your kisses
Okay,
in.
I kiss you. But you said the afternoon. Then he goes, I'm like,
Oh,
so now they've given us slots.
yeah, the boys are like that. It's so
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, I said to them, no matter how old you get, just make sure you're always hugging mummy. So it's funny. Yeah, we go
You
through all that.
see, it's those things. It's those, yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous, priceless. Oh God. So, oh wow, it really got me, that one. So the next question I have is, what advice would you give to your younger self before becoming a mother?
Don't assume you would just plug in. Plug in, but don't assume that everything just fits in. What do I mean? So you think that, again, as moms and as Christians, women of faith, we know that, like, you pray, you have to be praying. You have to. So don't assume that it's automatic, right? You have to, it's like a discipline that you have to build as well. Don't assume that you're just going to understand baby talk, like all of those little things. Don't assume that you're just going to step into them. Don't assume that you will just know how to raise a child, right? So be much more intentional with maybe speaking to other people, researching, building some kind of to-do list, like whatever. Just don't assume that you just know.
I
You
love
know
that.
the biology of it. To breastfeed the child, all those, the biology, maybe that comes automatically, but everything else with social development, all of those things, you don't know. So go read up, go speak to people, be deliberate about joining all these mommy clubs, all of those things. Whether you like it or not, go join the mommy club.
Yeah, I love that.
It's in those groups that there's sort of like peer review. You learn from what someone else is doing. You know, it's like when I met you and I just saw how amazing your family is and your kids, whatever you've done, I'm like, listen, write a book. I want to read that. What did you do to raise all these amazing global shapers? You know, it's oftentimes maybe there's one or two, but to have the whole bunch, you know, in Nigeria, they say cut soap for us. It
Cut
just
so cross.
means give me the cheat sheet. It's like, whatever you're doing, I want to know what you're doing.
I like that.
So it's just understanding that you have to be super intentional about going out there and getting the information, knowing what other people are doing. I didn't do that. So if I could go back, I'd do that.
I love that. I think that advice, that word of wisdom is really taking the weight off motherhood. Don't assume. Just as soon as you said that, it's like a weight lifted, because the reality is sometimes we have so many preconceptions, so many assumptions, and also so much pressure and guilt. Mum guilt is so real. Should I be doing this? Am I a good mum? Am I doing it right? And the reality is we learn by being around others. We learn by talking, observing. And I think that's so powerful that you said that in that light. I'm really glad that you shared that. Thank you so much. Because I know that in my own motherhood journey, the other thing is when you've got multiple children, just because you've been doing this with the first one, the second one comes along, they're like, hello, that's not how it works. This is not what happened. And I remember saying to mums that I'm a mother 5 times over, not a mother of 5. And there's a very distinct distinction there, because
I have to learn again and again
they
and
will
again.
humble us. They will definitely humble us. And I love that. Just even if we've got a way that we think it's supposed, just don't assume. I love that messaging. Thank you so much. So on to the next question. The next question is, how do you balance the emotional weight of being a mother with your own personal dreams and aspirations? Because you do amazing, by the way. Like, anybody that hasn't come across your profile, please, like, the information will be there. Go and check out this mum. She's amazing.
Thank you. This is what I like to say, that I need to be the best of myself because that shapes my child, right? I need to be the best of myself in every way, like accomplish my highest potential as much as possible and as much as I have grace to do, because then I give my child a better leverage, you know. And I always say that success starts internally. Like, you know, whatever atmosphere is on the inside is what gets reflected on the outside. So if I'm constantly just, and as quickly as possible, peeling off those layers, shedding all the weight and becoming a better self. And becoming is not about having all the money. That's not it. It's just becoming more like God and shedding off the dirt, shedding off the limitations, shedding off the generational patterns, shedding everything that is ugly and unnecessary and unuseful, unprofitable. Shed it off. Step into the light, become who God has called you to be, deliver excellently, like just all those beautiful things. The better I do that for myself, then the better my child has access to. It's like if you're feeding your child all organic food as opposed to all junk food. If like, it's food, but there's a difference. So it's kind of like that. I always say that my child is going to grow up to know that mommy's the one that's always traveling. She's always, because listen, I'm not the one who's going to say I'm going to sit at home. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. The best we can do is we grow to the point where everyone's going on the private jets. Like, yeah, let's all go. Yeah, I'm going to the conference at the World Trade XYZ, the UNICEF, the White House is calling, baby, let's go. I got an extra ticket for you. So that's gonna be, I made a decision a long time ago. And it's not even making a decision, is I knew that you're gonna have to be with that mom that's up and doing. And there'll be no guilt. The best we could do, find a way to get you on board. So that's it. I read something years and years and years ago. I don't even know when, and I can't even remember where I found it. And this article, to summarize it, was like there are two kinds of women. There's the women who, they want to be at home. If you take them away from the home and the traditional and put them in the corporate and in all that, she'll be miserable. And there's the corporate woman, that out there woman, up and doing business all over the world. If you take that woman and put her in a traditional, just sit at home and cook and clean, she'll be miserable. So that was just mind blowing for me. It's like, because oftentimes expectations differ depending on culture, industry, country, whatever. And we end up creating miserable people by trying to put them where they shouldn't be. Now, I'm an advocate that even if you're more a traditional woman, listen, sis, make some money. That's me. If you want to make it from home, that's okay. Do something beyond what's in your house. Now, that's me. But I do understand that not everybody's called to that, which is okay. But having understood me, like me, I want to be all over the place. Okay. So that just helped me to decide and say, this is the me that I am and that I want to be. And it just influenced everything, everything, all the way down to now. So this is who mommy is. Yes, she will need to juggle the balls. Maybe I'm going to miss a football game or two sometimes, but we'll do the best we can to, so it's there's no perfect system. There's no linear framework. It's abound, do what you can, make sure you prioritize the important, don't major on the minor and don't minor on the major. So it is again, be fluid.
Yes.
Right. So as I become who God has called me to be, they are going to tap off that. Because listen, God has a plan for everyone. God has a plan for each person. And God has factored in the people that will come from you into that plan. So if God is saying you're going to go and take over dominate in the government or dominate in business, God is not a Confucianist, right? So he's factored in the kind of children that will come out of you into that picture. So I don't think at any point that you should say because you're a mom, you're not going to fulfill your assignment. Because the children that God has given you are part of the picture that he's given to you. So it will be a disservice to your children to not live up to God's picture for your life. Because the way I designed those children, they're all supposed to feed into that. They don't have to be what I called you to be, but what they're called to be is cut off from what you are called to be as well. Like there's a link somewhere.
Exactly.
So you will be doing a disservice to your children if you do not become who God has called you to be. So ultimately, go back to the drawing board. Lord, who am I to be? If you deviate from who you're supposed to be by God's standard, again, you are doing a disservice. So if God has called you to full-time ministry and you go and do business, there's a problem. So this is how I understand it. So for me, again, it's always making sure that I'm in alignment with God, because I know that if I'm in alignment with God, everything else will align as well.
Absolutely. You've ministered to me. That's such a powerful message, because you spoke about my journey. Because I was thinking motherhood, if I give up on my dreams, they would have half their mother. And I love what you said, how there's a unique tapestry in life. There's a code in that. God, they come through you. And part of them is going to amplify that, what you're doing anyway. So it'll be a disservice not to. So I remember being a hot mess at the beginning, absolute hot mess. And realizing that I was only a hot mess because I wasn't surrendering to what was taking place. I had my own desires, my own needs, my background's in computer science. I was like, we're going to do this. And everything I tried didn't manifest. And then I was such a slow learner, because I got it. I was like, oh my God. And there was so much resistance doing this with my family. But realistically, it was my children that catapulted me into this area. So it's very interesting what you shared, because what we do is partly connected to what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And I love that seamless connection. The message you've shared is so profound, and honoring who you are, because you would be miserable, because that calling inside of you doesn't stop. So if you're going to pretend that it's stopping, and I love the fact that you've also said it's not the same for all mums, but if you feel that calling and you hear it, honor it. And it might not be in the way that you see it in the world, but God will reveal to you how it needs to show up. I love that. Thank you so much. Really profound sharing. Um, can you share a lesson you've learned from your own mother or a mother figure in your life that shaped how you parent today?
I like this question because, I had like a aha moment just a few days ago. Actually, was it Monday? Was it? Anyway, a few days ago. So what happened was I was taking my son for a swimming class. On Mondays, we take him to school, and then we have to take him from school early so that we can meet up with the swimming class. And because in the morning when he was on his way and his dad went to drop him, he wanted to take his dinosaurs. My son is a dinosaur addict. Like, yes. So he wanted to take the dinosaurs. Toys are not allowed in school. So we're like, listen, keep them here. You take them to your swimming and XYZ. So I went to pick him up for swimming, but I forgot to take the dinosaurs. So I go to school and he's like, where are the dinosaurs? And he's pulling me back. He wants us to go home, but the car is already waiting at the school. And we're, late. We're short of time. It's like, we need to forget the dinosaurs. You pick it. And then he was crying and everything. Managed to get him into the car, and he wasn't happy. And just as the car was going to take a particular direction, I'm like, go right, let's go home. And I called my husband, can you please throw the dinosaurs from the top and just throw it? And my husband goes, no, they could break, I'll bring them down. But anyway, we took that detour to get the dinosaurs. Why? Because I feel like my parents, of course, my mom, and I think especially my mom, they raise us up, and me, I speak to my personal experience, that your voice mattered, right? I remember instances where maybe there was a party, I wanted a new dress for a certain reason, and maybe the money wasn't really there, but my mom would, pull out the last thing in her purse to get that. Or even important decisions, like I wanted to go to this university, I didn't like that university. And they're like, listen, that's the only one that's available. But at pick one now, you already stayed 1 year at home, XYZ. And because I wanted one, they honored that desire. Whether it was wise or not, maybe I was just being a child. I felt like my voice was important. It felt like my thoughts, my desires were also important, and they didn't stifle them because they were parents. So those things, and those things, like I was in a university, I wanted another one, and when the door opened, they said, okay, we're going to forfeit whatever we paid at this university. You can go to the other one that you wanted. Things like that. So in that moment with my son, when I decided, let's go back, it was me trying to do that. So it's not about waiting till it's something important or that significant. It is even at this young age, I wanted to somehow, some way start letting him know that what you like is also important. So it doesn't have to be like something serious. It is that you like this, your voice is valid. What your like is valid in this regard. And after that happened, I actually was like, wow, this is exactly that thing that my mom did then at work right now. And I took joy in that moment that I was able to begin to replicate it, because I feel like it's like a muscle. If you don't start now, you just grow up and you're stuck in your ways, and you're so used to them saying what you like is not important, focus on the important thing. So I liked that, and I like that I was able to sort of just soak in that moment and take it in, because by appreciating it, I can replicate and do it again and again and again. So that's one powerful thing that came into my consciousness recently. I'm like, wow. So hopefully I can also do the same for my child. in such a way that they grow up understanding that what I like is important. Even if it may seem trivial, mommy is going to jump the hoops and jump the fence to deliver to me what I also like.
I love that. Instilling such confidence and acknowledging them at such a young age. Powerful, really powerful. It kind of reminds me of a quote that my mother clapped for me so loud that I didn't know when anyone else didn't. I love that. Like you're just pouring that into him, that your voice matters. That's beautiful, really
And
beautiful.
it's powerful. We look around us and we see people that are not as confident as adults. And I look at me on the other side, like confidence has been my middle name. And I try to trace it back. And I know that a big chunk of that is the way we were raised. Right. The other sides of how we're raised that are not so nice. But in that regard,
Yeah.
it's like, no. We were all, so I've got two siblings. All three of us are strong-willed. I'm like, how does anybody raise three strong-willed children? And personally, when I look back, I see how we would argue, like we my house, ooh, we don't like we had a voice, and our voice wasn't shut down. Even if there were instances, maybe we could have overdone it, but we had a voice, the way we were raised. We didn't live in the house where we couldn't speak up. So the tendency was to over speak up. The tendency was for us to overdo it and maybe cross the line to a little bit of disrespect, but we could speak up. And that's how we were raised. So I look at now the level of confidence that I have. I tell people, put me on any stage, anywhere. It's showtime. We're gonna go.
Yeah, definitely. I can attest to that. When you're on
all, we are gonna do it. And I look back and I know a large part of that is we were raised in an environment where we weren't shut down.
And that's so important. So, so important, because I know that young and old have challenges in that respect. A lot of my coaching, a lot of public speaking, this comes up a lot, you know, that internal permission to give themselves permission to share their voice. So your parents allowing you to just verbalize, vocalize, practice, you know, exercise the muscle the way you described it at such a young age. And now you're actually, your son's inheriting that. It's beautiful. Absolutely amazing. So the next question I have is, how do you define success as a mother?
Oh, these questions. How do you define success as a mother? So I would say that it is partnering with God to midwife my child's destiny. Now it's I don't even think I've started, right? But obviously there are parts of it that are conscious and there are parts of it that are not so conscious. But it is the awareness and holding myself up to that responsibility, that if it's to be praying, if it's to like make sure that they're acquainted with the word of God, whatever it is, whether it's in the secular space, in the academic space, in the like in Bible and in faith, whatever, it is just making sure that I'm a responsible partner with God to midwife his destiny, that I do not fail in my own part, right? It's that consciousness. And honestly, I wouldn't even say it's something I've entered yet. It's something I'm like, Lord, help us. You know, it's like, Lord, help us so that I do not fail in my part. So it's that consciousness. So ask me this question in 20 years' time, I'll have a better answer.
Your answer is beautiful. And again, we're always becoming, our perspective shifts. And I really love the way you conveyed that. That is so, so beautiful. That I've not heard the term of midwifing. I love that. That's really beautiful. Really, really nice. And I love, so go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll say it after you say it.
No, go on before you forget.
So I was going to say that because ultimately, they're not our children. They are our children, but they're not. They're first God's children. There's something someone said many years ago, This was in a church setting, and he said, "Your children are your brother and sister." Because when we get to heaven, it's not that's my mom. It's like, oh, that's my mom when I was on earth. But there we are equal. It's a level playing field. They just come through us. So they're actually God's children. So it's not my vision for their life. It's not my vision for, yes, I want them to be successful, but I don't even have a vision for, oh, I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be, no. It is, I just want to be sure that I'm a conduit for God through your life. So if God reveals to me that this child is supposed to be this, I want to make sure that I'm partnering with God to help you become that. And so just if there's a document, so and there is a document, there's a spiritual document for every person. It is, God, let me be positioned to receive the revelation in this document so that I can then play my human part in making sure that this child. So it's not about me. His future is very different. I'm not trying to replicate me. So there is that bit, because I think oftentimes parents want to, yeah, sometimes maybe through trauma or love, they want to engineer the child and the child's future. I don't really believe in that. So maybe through trauma is, oh, this, I didn't get this, and I want to make sure that so, well, people are influenced by different things, whether it's love or trauma or fear or XYZ, and then you want to engineer the child. No, it is, Lord, what is the plan? And what is my role in that?
That's beautiful. I love how you go back to God to order your steps. I love how you go back to God to give you the manual to activate your son. I love how you talk about the activation, the cultivation. You actually remind me of a very one of my favorite poems. It's called Our Children. I'll send it to you, and it talks about that they're not our children, they come through us, but they're not us. And I love the fact that you also mentioned about how parenting styles can be so much, I want to give you everything I didn't have. And there is a lot of fear because, bless parents, we want the best for our children. And the way we go about that sometimes is in fear, because we fear that, can we get them to where we want them to be safe in a short space of time? But I think that's where the faith comes in, so we can learn to surrender and trust the process. But I love the way you shared that. And I love the sacred approach that you take to parenting. It really comes through, and it's an approach that I can really resonate with, because it's not me instilling something in my children, it's cultivating, it's activating, it's stewarding. I love the way you said, they've got it inside them already, and it's beautiful. A bit like, what you said before, just watching them and going, oh my God, I've created you. But then they reveal to us who they are. So it's beautiful. It's amazing having this conversation with you. So the next question, did you want to add something else?
No.
Oh, sorry, I thought I just cut you off.
On and on and on.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So the next question I have here is, if you could rewrite any part of your motherhood journey, what would it be and why? You touched on it slightly, but I imagine this.
I would be a more educated, more informed mom, so that I could have taken better advantage of his earlier years. So like especially in the activity and interacting with the child, because I felt handicapped at the time. It's like, how do you talk to someone who's not talking to you? So you know how they say you'll talk to I didn't do a lot of that. And it was partly because I felt handicapped. Like, how do you talk to somebody who's not talking to you? You're supposed to have a conversation. If you're not talking to you, then well. And I remember I'll have thoughts like, can he understand? Can he hear? Like, if he can't hear, then what am I? All of that. So if I could rewrite, I would go back and just do it. Like, get more information. Don't feel paralyzed because you don't know. Because there was a bit of that. You don't know so much that you just feel paralyzed. Like, listen, I don't know. But rather just be proactive and do what you do across board. Like even in your career, if you don't know stuff, you find someone to talk to, and do the same. So that bit I would rewrite.
Beautiful. I love that. That's really nice. So the next question I have here is, how has societal pressures influenced the way you view and approach motherhood?
I don't let it. I just listen. If there's one thing I'm so sure of, when I teach people public speaking and personal branding, and they say, "What will people say?" I'm like, that's the last thing I ever care about. Like, it's not even on the list. Like, the moment anybody comes, what will people? Mayowa left the group chat. That's just no, zero tolerance for what will people say. And if there's anything I don't like, by the way, anyone listening, if there's any book on herd mentality, please send it my way. I'm always very curious about herd mentality, and I don't appreciate it. Maybe because I'm in media, you're able to see how people tend to just head in one direction. I don't know. So I don't even let any societal pressure influence, at least not consciously, anything that I do. Because with societal pressure, you then panic, you become desperate, and that's where mistakes happen. It's like, oh no, no, no. So I, as much as I can, do not let anything societal influence. Well, oh, this is what people are doing. Okay, good for them.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be good. If there's anything I need to know, I believe I will eventually know it. And again, I also trust that I do not parent this child alone. So if there are any gaps, we trust that the Lord will help us fill it. And again, ultimately, this boy has a destiny. And it's not gonna be, it's not me that delivers the destiny. His destiny is set in stone because it's between him and God. And God is the one who can oversee it and deliver it. And I read a scripture just a few days ago, and it talks about, will I bring to the point of, and I'm paraphrasing, will I bring to the point of delivery and not deliver? Like, essentially, will I bring you to your contractions? Will I bring you to labor time and not bring forth the child? If I brought you, if I made you pregnant, if I kept you through the pregnancy, if I brought you to the point of delivery, will I not be faithful enough to bring forth? So listen, mom, step out of the picture sometimes. Like, we don't overdo. It's live, and that takes pressure off.
It really does. It really does. That is beautiful. I love that. It's so, so true. I couldn't agree more. The next question I have here is, what role has community played in your journey, whether it has been a source of strength or something you struggled to find?
I think I shared a bit of that as well in, for instance, all the amazing platforms that are out there. What have been great, because that's a virtual community. It's also community. When we started raising, I mean, when he was a lot younger, it was COVID, so not much was going on. So now one of my struggles right now is trying to get him to learn our local language, and that's because we predominantly speak English in the house. My husband doesn't also quite speak our local language, so again, because we're not really interacting in our local language, obviously the boy then doesn't pick it up uh, as much. So my mom would be like, "You have to teach him this thing." I was like, so I mean, that space was like, oh my God, how do I? Because to teach him, I have to then build a new character, or you know what I mean. Like, I didn't have to be speaking it a lot more. But I think about, if we were back home in Nigeria, that might not be a struggle, because then it would be a lot around us.
Exactly.
So, and then you look at so that's one place I'm struggling with right now. It's like, I need this boy to catch on the language as early as possible, so he doesn't grow up to not be able to speak the language. And because we're here in Dubai, yes, we have Nigerians, obviously, but it's not the same as back home.
Yeah, totally.
It's not the same. So it's like, I don't even know if I'm answering the question,
No, you
but
are. Of course you
this
are.
is where I'm at.
No, absolutely. That's the reality for you. And I think that's a real problem. Many people who don't live in their home country or around that, in that environment of speaking their mother tongue, it's a real challenge. I have these conversations here in the UK about people that's from abroad. So it's a real challenge. I'm glad that you're sharing that. Thank you.
And to dig deeper into it, like, I see, and here in Dubai, it's like multiple nationalities. And I would hear other nationalities, particularly like Indians, a lot with the Asians actually. and even like the Russians, at least the ones I've taken note of, you'd hear them conversing with their children in the local language, and the children are also. I'm like, is
Amazing.
it is it an us thing? Is it a Nigerian thing or an African thing? Because I also know some of my friends who are Nigerians who also their kids don't speak as much. So I'm like, is it something with us? Should we call like a town hall meeting to say, what are we not doing? Or
That's
is it because we were colonized, so English was like the main national language back home? I don't know, but
That's
this is a
interesting you
conversation.
saying that actually, because my father's Nigerian and my mother's St. Lucian, and I don't speak either of those mother tongues. So that's quite interesting, and it's quite common here in the UK. I see similar to what you've just shared, so that's quite interesting. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
and it's a part of our identity, like the
Absolutely,
language. Your language is your native language is a part of your identity to a degree because we live in a world where, a lot of kids who are born abroad by parents who immigrated elsewhere will probably remain what I like to call global citizens. They may never go back to their original home country and live,
mm,
but they are still from there. Like, it doesn't matter if you got a passport of another nation, it's very different from a native.
very true.
Right? Yes, you may be born there, raised there, all your life is there, but the truth is, it's not the complete story for you, even if you have the passport. There is still a part of you, an important part that you need to connect with, and language is a part of that connection. So
Absolutely,
sometimes, like when I think about this language thing and how, number one, for those in the diaspora, the language probably dying out gradually. It is also for the individual, you want them to be grounded, and the language is part
absolutely.
of it. So what to do. It's a struggle,
Absolutely. You're,
and I don't
no,
even have the answer
no,
yet.
no, you do have the answer. And I love that you've said that because even with my children, I invest in language lessons, but I think it's so important and it is part of our identity. It really is. It lets, when a child knows where they come from, they can get to where they're going a lot easier. Um, no, thank you for sharing it. It's got me thinking, actually. Really got me thinking. The next question I have is, how do you cope with the guilt or doubts that often come with motherhood?
I I don't let them linger. There
Mm,
are very few moments when I've entertained those thoughts, especially when I maybe have to go to work, or again going back to me not engaging as much when he was a lot younger. Like, I feel like I didn't engage as much, especially because I feel handicapped with how do you talk to someone who's not talking to you, or not even having the information, or not even knowing that you're supposed to do those things. So yes, there is a bit of that has come up a few times, but I don't let it linger. See, once you understand that, number one, no one has it perfect. Someone may be doing something better than you, but no one is like nobody anywhere is perfect. They may just know A better than you do. So someone who maybe was engaging a lot more with like activities, maybe was not playing as much. There's one thing I do, I play. I mess around. I act the fool. I'm the mummy clown. That's me. Give me the award. So it is just giving grace. And rather than get crippled by guilt, it is just be proactive. Okay, what can we do better today? Just just what can we do better, and start doing it,
mm.
and give yourself grace. So that really is it. I don't let that listen. Remember, I told you I decided I was going to be in one
I love that. Don't let it linger. I
program.
think it's a powerful
So
message. Don't let
again,
it.
once you understand, part of it is if you know that you're walking in your God identity and your God um, vision, there should be no reason to feel guilt for that. It should
Mm,
just be a consciousness to be aware of the likely gaps because of your unique journey, and make sure you're covering in those areas. If you're going to be the mommy who's away a lot, just know that then you have to find a way to always be connected, or make up and do all. So my husband will tackle me and say, "You don't buy stuff when you go out and come back." That typical thing where mommy or daddy, or maybe I don't know if daddies do it more, mommy do it, I don't know. But that thing where you go out and you buy something when you come back home, if it's biscuit or I don't do that. Someone's gonna be like, can't you buy something when you're coming back? I'm like, forget it in the taxi. See, but the truth is that does add to something. You know, it adds to the quality of the experience at home when they can look forward to when you go, you're gonna
Oh,
maybe
yeah. Definitely.
you know, we kind of enjoyed that back then, right?
Yeah, tell me about it.
But maybe that's something I need to work on. I'm like, listen, dude, you do it. Must I do it too? So, but again, going back to the point of be aware
Mm,
the likely gaps and try and fill as you can. Just try
exactly.
and continue to find ways to enrich the experience. Understand the gaps that can be caused by your unique journey. If you're a travel mummy, you know that you're not spending as much time physically as if you were not a travel mummy. So when you're there, make sure you're full on there. And even when you're away, find a way to connect as well.
It's important.
So don't be ignorant of the gaps that can come up because of your journey. But do not feel guilt if you're doing your God ordained do.
Absolutely. I love that. That is beautiful. I really love that. But definitely, like when you're coming back, I know that the treats they stand by the door. They're literally watching you come so they can
It's
see
not
what.
me, but I have to build it up. Yeah.
So that's a really good one to implement. Like, can you go away a bit more? Oh, it's brilliant. So the next question I have is, what do you wish people understood about the emotional labor that comes with motherhood?
When we say people, who are we talking about?
Whoever you want to nominate, just whether they family, friends, just in general. Like, what do people maybe? What's the kind of misconception or misunderstood or just not aware, like the emotional turmoil, everything being in the mother's head, anything that comes to mind.
And I think you literally just helped me out there by talking about everything is in the mother's head. I would say that, and I'd say this to the men folk more, and this is not bashing, right? This is not bashing. That a mom feels things really differently, I would say,
Mm.
with the child. You see that again, men are protective in their own way. And just because men and women are different by default, the way we express our protective nature could also be different. What do I mean? So for me now, I've always been this healthy, you know, type of person. It's like, how can we go green or how can we be healthier food choices? So now but it's gotten worse in the past few years, worse in a good way. Because now I'm reading ingredients. If the first ingredient is sugar, no.
Mm.
And I remember early on when I told my husband, this was like maybe our son was maybe 2 or 3, I don't know, or maybe 2. I was like, no ice cream for him. My husband's like, because I think the way he interpreted it was, you're trying to deprive this child of a great childhood. How do you say no ice cream? Ice cream to my husband probably represented part of a great childhood and fun childhood. Here I am saying no ice cream. It's like, what are you on? But for me, it wasn't that. It was these things are horrible in terms of ingredients, in terms of, and now the world is going crazy health wise. People are getting sicker and cancer is growing up, and all of these things are happening. Why? We need to go back to the foundation. We can't be ignorant of the root cause, and food is a big part of that. So we can't just look at it and say, oh, because we're not sick, we'll just continue doing what we're doing. So I'm on that. That's my journey. I'm in that space. And by extension, I'm looking at my child that I'm trying to protect. And I'm saying, I don't want you to have to become an adult who's now struggling with diet and weight and XYZ or habits. It is, I want to raise you with clean habits as much as possible so you don't have to struggle in later. You don't want to be an adult who's now trying to win himself or herself off sugar or bad food or junk food. It is, and it's because we're this way because we were raised it that way. So I'm trying to raise you different, and that's going against the grain. So essentially, now, maybe not just for men, in general, it is processing, give grace, and try to see beyond the crazy. Because coming up to say no ice cream for this child might look crazy,
Yeah,
but try and see beyond the crazy. And maybe again, going back to the root, communication will always be a superpower for every relationship.
very
So
true.
it's rather than think this girl's going cuckoo, it's like, why do you feel like, and we've had these conversations again and again. I'll be like, listen, I'm not trying to deprive him. It's just, this is where I'm at. This is the process behind some of the things I say. And it is me understanding media and marketing and how they influence
Mm,
how we see everything. So we see a good time essentially as junk.
yeah,
Nobody's thinking of a good time and thinking salad and green juice. Think about it.
very true. That's a good
You think
point.
about party and having a great time. You're not thinking salads and juice.
Very true.
You're thinking all the nasty stuff.
Very
Why?
true.
It is years and years of programming. And if you
Very,
can see beyond that veil, you'd be able to take those difficult decisions a bit easier because you're trying to even go against the grain inside you. Remember, I'm cut up from that. So for me, it's also trying to become somebody else so that I can give him somebody, he can become the new version. So it's a lot.
it
So I
is.
say that if you find yourself in a similar situation, maybe not for ice cream like my case, but if your partner is saying cuckoo stuff, try try
The
and
reason
find that
I'm
stuff.
laughing so much is because we are so similar. So I'm really grateful for this conversation. Like I
Find
don't get
find
biscuits, fizzy drinks. Like there's lots that I'd cut out, and it is very much like, what's wrong with you? Like this is their childhood. Let
doing
them.
too much.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm just laughing. Yeah, definitely. But I totally agree with you. You know, if they're going to become adults, they have to unlearn all of that unhealthy habits. But if we instill that discipline, it's not easy. But I love the way you described it. That's why I was just laughing because I'm definitely that mum. Sometimes if I kind of break the mold, my kids say, "You okay? What's going on? Why are we having that? We'll eat it while we can." Because I'm
Just
exactly the same.
I feel guilty when I'm also just throwing in a little. I don't want him to see me. So,
One thing.
it's a journey. So now for my chocolates, especially when I have like real sugar craving and sweet craving, I'm trying to. So now I buy dark chocolate. No more of
Yeah,
all that rubbish.
that's my
So
daughter's.
I want chocolate. Okay, let's go for dark chocolate with nuts inside. So now I'm giving him and he's taking that. So now hopefully as he grows older,
Make better
he's drinking
choices.
dark chocolate. And it's not something I'm trying to preach to him about to say, oh, for healthy reasons, do good. No, he grew up on that. It will be a part of him.
Exactly. No, it's
But
really funny. He's got
I'm
these
trying to do it
visions.
for myself too. There's still those odd moments where, yeah, I just want a
There's
bit of
a
that.
learning curve. But you've given me so much visions because when my kids are out, especially Paolo, you always see him run and try and get Coke. If someone gives it, like, don't let my mum see. We just don't have those things at home. So yeah, you and I, yeah, we're very similar in that respect. But thank you for sharing that. So the next question I've got, you've sort of touched on this, but just in case you'd like to go a bit deeper. So it says, what legacy do you hope to leave behind for your child or your children?
Yes. Jesus and only Jesus. Listen, there's a prayer that I pray. And I pray and I say that all my children, you know how as for like trust fund babies at a certain age they come into the inheritance, the money. For my children, my prayer is their trust fund that they come into is the Holy Spirit. And it's not for them to come into it at 18. I tell my son, I say, the Holy Spirit is your best friend. And that's my prayer. I want at a very young age to say, Mommy, the Holy Spirit said, nothing else will give me greater joy than that. Like, I'm not talking about kids that can quote the Bible, which would be great. I'm talking about kids that encounter the Holy Spirit from a young age and they come into that from early on. That's it. My work is done. That's my prayer. I always pray and say, Lord, the inheritance, and it's not just for my children, from as many that come through me. If your blood's coming from me, your inheritance, your trust fund money is the Holy Spirit. It's just gonna pounce on you like you just like listen. So that is honestly my prayer.
I love that.
A good name, yes, great. Money, fantastic. Confidence, but the principle of it all, the one that will help them navigate when I'm long gone, that's the one. That's the one. So my job is done if I'm able to, raise up a child in the way of the Lord. If he grows up, he will not depart from it. Before you think it's easy, it's actually not so
No.
easy. It's actually not easy. Again, we somehow think that because they're raised in a Christian home and they see you doing it automatically. No, it's a different level of intentionality. Um, I struggle in the area of like reading the word to my son and, on that level. So it's things that I'm trying to work on. Like, listen, from this young age, he may not understand it. Start reading the Bible to him. Start doing all the, it's a level of intentionality. And I'm not even there. I'm not saying I'm there yet, but again, this is my journey that I'm sharing. It is just knowing that just because he was raised in a house and just because you're a spirit cocoa mommy and shandadada mommy, that is going to pounce in them, not essentially. You have to literally feed them with it. So it's not been easy.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that. That's everything.
It's beyond.
That is everything. That is beautiful. I love that. I couldn't agree more. Wow. Yeah, that's a very moving response. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. So my next question, you've changed my voice. My next question is, how has motherhood transformed your relationships, whether that's with your partner, your friends, or family?
I'll start with this one. And I'll start with what happened to me in terms of business. So prior to now, and in some regard till now, my charity, I always say my charity side and my business side always conflict. I'm the one who has to do everything for free and help everybody, help the whole world. That's me. But I'm also very like entrepreneurial in my mind and see opportunities. Like I see opportunities I'm able to do, but now I'm doing everything for your child. But when I had a child, especially when you're in Dubai, when the prices are not, they don't play. Child, and now realizing that I have beyond myself to take care of. I have a child to be responsible for now. My child's got to go to school. I've got to be able to, with my partner, do A, B, C, and D. That means that I cannot, in the things that were charity before, I've got to be business now. So if you book a session 1 hour, maybe I'll extend to 1:30 so that's my charity. But we've got to do the business. If I'm giving you value, listen, I've got bills to pay. I've got bills to pay didn't become a real reality until I had a child. I mean, so that shifted, made me a bit more responsible business-wise. With my partner, obviously in relationship with a partner, perhaps before if you could go days without, it's like you guys are figuring each other out, right? And doing all that. But now you with a child, you're now more aware that whatever we do, we're literally that's what we're creating somebody else. So it is, I always see into the picture, into the future and be like, if my child exhibits a certain trait in the future as an adult, a lot of that will be part of what we're doing now. So there's a bit more sensitivity. Doesn't eliminate, just the up and down and what Nigerians would call the basbos, the basbos of marriage, but it brings in a certain level of sensitivity and responsibility to say, we're now not just only responsible to ourselves and our marriage, we're not responsible for how another person is shaped and the experience that the people that they meet have. So this boy is going to get married in the future. What is the experience and the testimony of that wife? What will she say about our son? It's partly who we are today with each other so that he can drink from that well. And if we're not optimizing, if we're not being the best, that's what he's going to drink from. That's what he's going to. because that's what he's gonna learn. It's like, I don't know, you want me to be something I'm not. Now is how we shape that thing.
Exactly.
So it's that extra level of sensitivity that we're not just now responsible ourselves. We have a child. What is he going to inherit? The flip side of that is also spiritual. If you see generational patterns. So if there's a tendency for you to feel like, listen, well, I'm already done for. So what to do? It is, are you gonna pass that on? So it's like you've got to stand your guard, break what needs to be broken, undo what needs to be undone, so that he doesn't have to struggle with that. Because if he struggles with that, guess what? It's partly your fault. You didn't you didn't wake up. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. You didn't. So do what you should do. Partner with God, do the hard work, burn the midnight oil or candle or whatever, so that they don't have to carry it on. So it's that level of sensitivity, because whatever you don't deal with between you and I, partner, you're automatically opening the door to say, yeah, our child can carry that on.
True.
And who wants that? Who wants to their children to inherit something that is not beautiful?
So, so true. That's such a beautiful response. Thank you for that. There's such a common theme with your responses with regards to intentionality and God. So beautiful. Thank you so much. So the next question I have is, what's the most unexpected lesson you've learned from your child?
Ah, I'm struggling with this one. I'm struggling with this particular question. And I'm struggling because it's not an obvious thing. So if somebody said, "Oh, mommy, this is the lesson," then maybe I'd easily recall.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's got to be something unsaid and unspoken, something you had like an aha moment about. I can't think of one right now, to be honest.
Definitely protection came up at the start, remember? That new level of self actualization, how you show up.
Yeah, and maybe it's a combination of all the different things I've said. Like, if you see something in your child that came from you, then you better take responsibility for that. But
Yes.
um, so yeah, I think it would just be a summary of the different things and just being aware.
Mm.
For your child to become something, you have to become it first. So now, one thing I'm currently struggling with is screen time. I'm always on my phone. Now, my son wants the phone. I don't want to give it to him. So my mind, I'm like, girl, obviously he wants it because you are also on it all the time. But it's like, listen, this phone is like the conduit for my business. I'm not just there. It's just this is my office.
Yeah.
But again, for the child, it's you don't want to give me the phone, but you are always on the phone. So navigating that, like, how do I reduce my screen time? Or even when I'm with him, how do I eliminate as much as possible screen time so that when I'm with him, I'm full on with him, not yeah. Well, don't do that. Stop it.
It's true. It's so true.
It's
It's a
it's a
modern day
lesson I've
challenge.
learned.
It really is a challenge. A
It's a
lot of
lesson.
people can relate to that.
It is. So now the question is, how can I run my business in such a way that when my son is here, less screen time? Or how do I delegate? So if you need to hire someone to handle certain things, it's an ongoing conversation.
Totally relate. Totally, totally relate. Makes sense. Thank you so much. So the next question I have is, if you can change one thing about how society views or supports mothers, what would it be?
How society views. Could you repeat the question?
So basically, I think you touched on it before, like how maybe platforms can support mums, or how societal stereotypes are of mothers. Like, how could you what societal stereotypes would you like to change? Maybe that's better wording.
I would say that there's no one size fit all. And the tendency to solve a mass problem is to find a mass solution. So, oh, we want our women in the workforce. We've noticed that once they start having children, oftentimes XYZ percentage, which is always a higher percentage, they leave the workforce. We understand that half the wealth of the world is missing because half the population is not really in that marketplace. So there's always a tendency to find a mass solution, which I understand, because if you could to scale it, there's got to be a template, a framework that, but in my experience, we have to leave room for a customized solution as well. How can we create it? And we see we're humans. If we can create stuff that's leaving this space, this place, and going elsewhere, we can also figure out a mass solution that has room for flexibility and customization as well. So I remember when I just had my son, and I literally, the first time I went back to work was 2 weeks after my delivery. And then, paced myself after that, but I needed to go do something for work 2 weeks after. And I remember how even in his first couple of months, need to go up for an event, an interview or something. And Dubai is great in that sense that, there was that room for me to email and say, hi, I have a baby. I'm coming for this. Can I bring my baby? Or is there room? And that was fantastic, help me. So I'd be interviewing someone and there'd be someone at the back carrying my baby. So again, just kudos to Dubai. I love that the culture, at least in my experience, gave room for that expression. And when I showed up anywhere, somebody looked at me funny, like, is she even serious about work when she's bringing her baby? So there was that room, and I like that. So it is, again, going back to a customized solution, is let there be flexibility in, okay, this woman's unique situation is she wants to keep working, but she has a baby. Okay, do we need a crash in the office, or do we need work from home? It is always look at the big and I think once we have a leave no one behind approach, we would be more flexible. Some women have help, some don't. Some partners are very supportive in terms of hands-on, some partners are not. So so you see, a woman who's got a more supportive hands-on partner would probably have it better than one who's not as supportive or who's not as hands-on. So then the woman is carrying everything, but maybe she still wants to. You see the different dynamics. So it is, if we have a leave no one behind approach, then our solution or approach to finding a solution will be more flexible. And so everybody will be accounted for, essentially.
I love that leave no one behind approach. That's very true. Everyone's situation is different. Such a profound response. Thank you. Amazing. You could bring your baby to work. That's incredible. That is really nice. Kudos to Dubai, definitely. So the next question I have is, what's the most misunderstood part of your journey as a mother? You might have feel like you've answered that. It's fine if you would like to try and answer it.
I don't. Again, I think we have talked about it.
Yeah, I thought so. So the next one, I'll go straight on to the next one, is how has motherhood changed your perception of yourself, your goals, and life in general?
It's amplified it. I'm still very committed to myself. I'm still very, like, just because I'm a mom doesn't mean that's my entire, it doesn't dominate my headspace. It's like I didn't leave myself just because I'm a mom. There's still very much me. And if there's one label I said I wasn't, I never wanted to, I didn't just want to be mom and wife. That's a disservice to me. Not to say that those things are not worthy or worthy of being the entire label. Those are ministries in themselves. But for me, it's a disservice to me, to whatever God has called me to be, to just have the labels mom and wife. I feel like there's capacity to be more. And that's not that there's just me. There's me first, and then wife, and then mom, and then daughter, and then worker, and then personal brand. They all have different degrees of importance and priority, obviously, but there is me. Now, because by God's grace, I really don't care about herd mentality or what they say. So whatever they say, if anybody has any impression, that's their headache, not mine. I'm doing what I can with what I know in terms of being a wife and a mom.
Mm.
My understanding of my calling to be a wife and a mom, very different. I'm still very faithful to my calling, the one that has my name on it. Yes, the family and everyone else in the family is a part of it, so they're never excluded from what God has called us to be. But I'm still very faithful to that. So again, because if anyone has any other opinion, then just listen, you'll be okay.
Yes.
So I wish more people would have that perspective and not worry so much and not play to the gallery so much and not pattern their lives based on because what people say will shift. Listen, mass mentality is the most fickle thing ever. The same people who are probably like, Jesus, oh, we love you, thank you for the miracles, and then say, nail him, yes, crucify him.
True.
That is it. Like one moment, just like that. That's it. So if you're living your life based on that, you are in a very difficult place and you are in trouble.
Very true.
So yes, there's always room for feedback, but you live your life, take ownership. So flip side of it is actually wanting more people to think this way. It is you take ownership, understand your journey. Again, the way you take ownership is to understand the manuscript or the manual. And so you're living by the manual. And so my son has a bit of speech delay. And it's interesting that I feel like God had given me a revelation before I even found out. So when it did play out, I didn't panic. You know, maybe other people will be like, yeah, headless chickens and, oh my God. Or some people that want to easily label that as autism or whatnot. I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll do what we can. Yeah, go for therapy and do whatnot, but there's no need to panic and just because I understand the blueprint. I know he's gonna be fine. He'll talk when it's time to talk. He's talking now, obviously. He's talking now. But again, in that season, I saw how important it is to be so close to God, to have your ears close to God's heart, to see things from a God perspective. Because typically, no, who wants speech delay for their child? Nobody. And there's a tendency to see that from a very negative perspective. Didn't they say that Einstein didn't really talk until he was 5? Yeah. And look how he turned out to be.
Exactly. It's actually called the Einstein syndrome, actually, delayed speech. Now there's an Einstein syndrome being identified in kids. Exactly that. Thank you for sharing.
We'll talk when it's time. No problem. And ultimately, there is no situation that is beyond God's control, influence, power, and authority. So we'll be fine.
Absolutely.
Help me navigate the early stage of it. Maybe if I didn't have that revelation, if I didn't have that grounding, maybe I would have given into the frenzy around to a degree and you know how it is with doctors' reports and oh my God, maybe I'm like, he'll be fine. Doesn't matter anything they put on the paper, he'll be fine.
Absolutely.
So again, it is just always going back to the drawing board, and the drawing board is God. No matter what the report says, no matter what the reality says, no matter what we see as moms, just always go back to the source and stay grounded there. I know that everything else will be fine. Moses had some speech problem, didn't stop him from being used by God. Like there's just so much to say, but if we don't see everything from a God perspective, there's a tendency to read super negative connotations into everything and operate from that place. Again, it's not going to serve us well.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. You've shared so many nuggets of wisdom, and I'm so glad that you talked about this because I know there's some mums in the community that will be in those scenarios, and I know the wisdom that you've departed will really strengthen and give them that hope and pivot, you know, ever so slightly away from the negativity and go, actually, let me ground myself, let me reconnect, and don't panic. I love that. Such a powerful message. Thank you very much. Thank you, really, really. So the next questions that we're going to ask are just a couple of trivia questions, just the light-hearted, because we've gone quite deep into the journey of motherhood. So the first one here is, if your child was to write a book about you, what would the title be?
Funny mommy. It's gonna be funny mommy. I mean,
Oh.
mommy can be stern sometimes, but ooh, funny. You know, one memory I always want my child to have amongst all the memories possible, it is the laughter and the joy and the play.
Yeah.
I always want to be the play mommy forever.
Oh.
Ever. I never want to be that, mommy. Yeah, no, and mommy's gonna mean business when she means business. Mommy's gonna, yeah, get in line. But mommy's gonna be funny and playful and roll on the floor and be a mess.
Yeah.
Mess publicly or privately. That's the mom. Anytime I watch about Princess Diana and how she was very hands-on with the boys and how she would do maybe kind of like on royal things.
Yeah, break protocol often.
Not very royal, not royal. Yeah, that I so resonate with that. I want to be that mommy where, if in the spaces where you're expected to be mommy, I want to be playful, naughty, clown mommy. My son, so I'm in the worship team in my church, and my son has this thing about coming to the stage to come and meet me.
Oh.
I never like go back. No, this is not according to the protocol. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna put my hand on his head. If I can, I'll just nudge him. But that's me. Just because we want to follow the agenda and how it's supposed to look, we deprive ourselves of something powerful.
Yeah.
Again, people shouldn't be so stuck up because by the program, and I know that, yes, because I've mentioned the church, I'm going to speak about order. There is need for order because imagine if all the kids of all the people on the stage were running. So there is room for that. But however, it is not to, let's be careful with even order. So I'm ministering somewhere, my son comes on stage, I'm fine with it. Leave the boy. That's me. Right? If the situation permits, leave the boy. Obviously, if it's becoming a whole mess and all the kids are trying to, obviously now we have to take control of that situation. But he's not every kid, and not every kid will do that. So it's those things for me.
That's really nice. That's beautiful. You and I are so similar. I call myself the female Peter Pan. If we go to the park, I'll play basketball with them, football. I am the one that's going down the slide, and they just know. They just know.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna be on.
I'm the one who's going down the slide. Oh my God. I take you into play areas, and I'm literally the only adult that's doing with the, and you see all the mommies and daddies sat in the space for the parents. Listen, I'm gonna be in that bowl swimming thingy with all the
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
I don't know what you're doing over there, but you're missing out. This is where the fun is. I've made content. The other day I created content. So I was sat in this, that it's like a swimming pool, but of colorful balls. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Softball area.
I was sat in there, stuff in there properly with my laptop, and I'm working. I'm like, this is how you be mommy and work at the same time.
I love it.
People laugh. It's like, what are you doing? But to me, that is how it should be.
That's the reality of it. I love
I'm like, you guys don't even know what you're missing out on. You're sitting over there as a parent. Oh, please, that's not fun.
Exactly.
I would do that anywhere.
I love that.
Anywhere. It doesn't matter how corporate, how stuck up they are. In a heartbeat, I'm gonna jump in there. Because this is life. This is the living. This is what it means. When they say living in the moment, this is it.
Yeah. That's so funny. So similar. So my next question is, what's the funniest mum fail moment that you've experienced? So I'll give you an example. So school holidays here, I've turned up to school when school was closed, thinking that it was time to go back, and actually the whole school was shut. I got the dates wrong.
Oh yeah. Thank you for saying that. So I have multiple mom fail moments. Multiple. And for me, it is keeping up with the parent app from school. So oftentimes maybe I'm the one who's taking him to school, and then he's rocking up with the uniform, and then you get there, everybody's wearing like Spider-Man, and I'm like, were we supposed to wear something today? Uh-oh. That has happened so many times. The last time, so they had like a Winnie the Pooh day kind of thing, and you're supposed to put them in the Winnie the Pooh colors, red, yellow, XYZ. So I'm taking him to school, and he's in the uniform. We're in the elevator in our building, and then there's another mommy with her child going to the same school. And so she's like, oh, he's in another class that she thought was Winnie the Pooh. I'm like, huh? Are we supposed to wear something? And she's like, oh, check the calendar. And I checked the calendar. Lo and behold, it's Winnie the Pooh day. We went back upstairs. I'm like, thank you so much. You just, thank you. So we were still in the building, in the compound, went back up, changed to yellow and red, and then went to school. Thank God for that mommy who saved me. So in school, they already know that this one, yeah, his last school, I had to say, can you send it to me as an email? Because I don't follow up with the app. If you send it to me as an email, I'm gonna see it as an email. So yeah, that's one common.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many. Oh, it's funny. So the next question is, what's your go-to hideout when you need a break, Kath?
Go to what?
Like a hideout place. Like, so some mums hide in the toilet. They maybe just have a candlelit bath and just lock themselves away.
There is no hiding in my house. My son got to that age where now he says he asked me to excuse him when he goes to the toilet. Especially when
Oh.
he's doing the number two. He's like, excuse me. No, before he'd say, go out. I said, don't, you can say, excuse me, please. Right. And sometimes you'd forget and say, go out, go outside. I say, is that what we're supposed to? Oh, excuse me. But when it's my turn, yeah. I'd be like, but you asked me to leave. Can you please? No, he's
No?
going to come and lock the door behind him. So in this house, there is no hiding place. We don't have enough rooms to hide from Ebel. And he's going to bang the door down. He's going to knock the door till you open. So if you want to hide, just leave the house. Just
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
leave
I
the house.
think so many mums can relate. Yeah, I love the fact that you said he comes in and locks the door. I remember my kids doing that.
And then close it.
The audacity that you come and lock the door.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So the next trivia question is, what's the strangest thing that you found in your child's backpack or pocket? So one of my sons used to like picking up worms and bugs and found it quite funny that when I'm going through his clothes, it will shock me. I didn't know what.
I think maybe he hasn't gotten to that age yet. I think the only thing we would find is he apparently was taking toys from the school. So he loves dinosaurs, remember? And I think they've got some dinosaurs in the school. And then the school calls up was like, we think Ebo has some dinosaurs in his bag. Apparently had been putting the dinosaurs in his bag. I'm like, dude, no.
Bless him. Oh, bless him. You know, I want to thank you. You know, you've been amazing answering all these questions. We're actually in the home straight, the final few questions, and then we'll be finishing up. So, in some of these closing questions, the first one is, if our community of listeners could support you in 3 transformative ways, what would you ask for?
That's easy. And I don't think of them really relate to motherhood. It is one, book me for public speaking and personal branding. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, I have a gift that can serve you. Secondly, 2025, I'm looking to travel. I want to be booked and busy. I MC events. 2. Number 3 is, if you're doing something amazing as a mom, please feel free to just find me on Instagram and say, hey, I think you can do this with your son. I'm still learning a lot about, how to raise a well-rounded child. My son right now, it's the tantrum. No, not even really the tantrum. Is the punching, and it's like, don't punch if you're not happy. Just say. So if you've got material, how you handled it, let me know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you for that. Amazing. And how can they reach out to you? So if give us some social media handles.
Across social media as the Lady Mayowa. You find me anywhere. The Lady Mayowa. TikTok, not as much. Instagram, I kind of live there, so you find me there. LinkedIn, yes, you find me there too.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So, what's one way that you plan to pay it forward as a result of our conversation? Has there been anything that's come up that you kind of feel I'd love to just pass that on?
I think having this conversation is paying it forward. You know, remember before we started recording, I told you that it's actually, I don't think I've ever really spoken about motherhood. So typically I'd speak about like branding, media, public speaking, all of those fun things, or even just personal development, right? But it's the first time I'm really speaking about motherhood. So paying it forward to be sharing this actually. And if there's anyone out there, at least in my community, who think I'm the best in sliced bread or who think I'm amazing, it'd be great for them to see this part of it, right? So because somehow whether you control it or not, some people do look up to you, and it's
Absolutely.
always good to give them a fuller picture. So if they think, oh my gosh, she's killing it, I'm not always killing it. Sometimes I kill it, sometimes it escapes.
Mm.
So I think paying it forward is sharing this part of me. And of course, if there's anyone that I meet that I can speak to, yeah, happy to do that.
And I'm so grateful, the fact that we don't normally share this, the aspect of motherhood. I feel very honored that you would share that with us and our community. Thank you so
Better to share it with than
much.
you.
Absolutely
Write a book
amazing.
about
I'm so
motherhood,
moved.
raising global shapers. Yeah, let's get that book.
Yeah, we need to talk. So, next one. Oh, yeah. So, next question I have here is how do you hope sharing your story on this podcast would impact others?
Well, that's exactly it. It is just seeing someone else's picture. If it resonates with you, great, and you know that you're not crazy, you're not alone. It is
Mm,
something that someone else knows that maybe you didn't know. It is giving yourself grace. It is all those things. So it will always be good when we share stories, because no one's an island. No one can build as an island. No one can raise children even as an island. Yes, you would have the blueprint and the manuscript, but God is, Bible talks about these treasures that he hidden in earthen vessels, I believe, is how the scripture goes. So you've got something that God kept in you. There's something else in somebody else. And as we share, then we tap into what God has given each one of us.
that's beautiful.
And we become all the better for it.
That's beautiful. That is really nice. I'm so moved with what you share. Your responses are so touching. So the next question I have here is, what are you proud of yourself for?
I want to thank me for being me. I want to thank me for loving me. I want to thank me for being the confident me. Yeah. I love myself. And I love who I'm becoming. Um, what I thank me for is just never giving up, never giving up, just being there, just keep going, keep trying. Yeah, that's, and obviously I didn't make myself that way. It's God's grace. But I'm really appreciative that I'm the one who, if there's one thing you will know, that like Mayowa, she's gonna start without really having the full picture. She's gonna keep at it, she's gonna believe in it, she's gonna keep tweaking, and she will tweak fast. She's going to have higher, bigger ambitions. She's going to want more, because there's always more. She's going to always want more. She's never going to be intimidated by people's small-mindedness. It is, listen, if you want small, good for you. I'm on the fast train to somewhere big. You coming? No. See you later. Or maybe see you never, because I'll be too far away.
Mm.
So it is, I love my audacity. I love that I do not dim my light for anyone. I love that I'm happy to cut people off if they want me to dim my light for them.
Mm.
That I'm able to choose me. That I think the world of myself. Again, remember, sometimes I think it borders around a little bit of pride, and we always pray to God, Lord, just help. Is it self-esteem or pride? Which one? Help me. But I love that that is my struggle, and the other end is not my struggle.
Exactly.
You know, everybody has something they're working on and they're trusting God for, and we're trusting God to shape us and form us. But I love that I'm having to ask, is this healthy self-esteem or is this pride? Lord help me, which is it?
Yeah.
Because I'm able to run with my race without considering who likes it or not. You like it? I love you. You don't? See you later. Peace be unto you. I love that for me. I love that for me. And I want to be able to pass that on to my children, to be super, super, super confident and focused on the vision that God has given them, that they do not dim their light for anybody and any reason, and not for even for any situation.
I love that.
Always see the big picture. Always see the big picture. Always see the big picture. Always have your heart open. Yeah, I love that for me.
I love that how you insert healthy boundaries in your life. And I think it's so important for mums because we're very much taught by, society, community, ourselves, that we are everything to everyone and everyone else comes first. You're a good woman or a good mother when you put everyone there first. But just listening to you today, like, I'm so grateful that I've had this sacred connection with you to get to know you in another light. And there's such strength in you, such conviction. And I just, I just love how you love on yourself and just say, actually, let me put me first, because when I can be the best version of me, I can give that version to the people that I love. And it's just beautiful listening to what you shared today.
It wrongs people the wrong way oftentimes. A lot of people, so one of the things, misconceptions, or yeah, that people they think I'm a proud person, or they think that I'm stuck up. Why? Because it is commonplace to deem yourself for others. It is commonplace to put yourself second. It is commonplace. It is humility to not put yourself first. Not by my books. You get, if I mean, how many mothers you hear talking about me first?
Yeah, it's true.
Like, I have to be, I'm faithful to me, so that the society has normalized the reverse. So if you put yourself first, then you must not be nice, you must not be humble, you must not have good intentions, you must XYZ and all the negative things.
I'm so glad that you've touched on this. Like, God is so good. Like, we're coming to the end and you've managed to touch something that is really powerful. You've shared so much, but I love what you said. Like, women are often prided on being selfless. The more you leave yourself behind, the more depleted you are, the more you serve others.
The more righteous and virtuous you are.
And I think, honestly, I really believe that those are the ingredients to erosion. Those are the ingredients to burnout, because you cannot just give, and everyone just take. And it's a depletion, because everywhere you go, you just give. Where do you replenish? So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Thank you so much. Really, really important. Really beautiful. So my next question is, what do you want to say sorry to yourself for?
Sorry for not learning it fast enough.
Oh.
Yeah. Oops. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah, like, again, I don't dwell on the not so great.
I love that. You did say that before. Like, don't dwell on it. I think that's so important. It's like,
course correct, keep moving.
Exactly. I really love that. You said that earlier, is that it may come up, acknowledge it, but don't dwell on it. Don't stay there. Don't get stuck. So my final question is, what are you willing to let go of as a result of this conversation today?
I don't know.
Maybe there's nothing to let go of.
Nothing. I just want to add more. Like, it's not letting go, it's top up knowledge, top up better network, be more proactive with, if it's prayer, I want to pray, if it's engagement, like, just, yeah, that's where I'm at. So it's not really the shedding, it's more the adding.
Beautiful. I love that. That's really nice. That is really nice. So, thank you. Like I said, thank you so much for your time. I can see your little man in the background come back. So, we're just going to close this segment. So, I've just got a message for a call to action. So, a call to action for listeners. Listeners, let's turn words into action. If you're moved by today's stories, think about how you can offer support, no matter how big or small, whether it's through a kind message, shared resources, or connecting with our guests. Let's build a community that uplifts, empowers each other as mothers. Now, thank you so much to yourself, Mayowa. I cannot thank you enough for being here today. And listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Unheard Cries of a Mother. Your stories matter, and together we can create ripple effects of understanding, support, and transformation. If today's conversation resonates with you, please like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. Remember, as mothers, we're stronger together. Until next time, let's keep lifting up each other and turning unheard cries into powerful voices. Mayowa, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor to have you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having this conversation as well.
Yes.